What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mowry, joined by my co-host,
Ricky DaCosta.
Tell the folks what time it is.
Run it back.
Time to run it back. Beautiful people, we have been away for far too long. Don't be mad at us, okay? A few different things with production, working out some new kinks.
Yeah, we might be getting a little new
Might be moving to
studio.
new
We might be
place.
expanding the
Yeah.
staff,
A
right?
lot of things going on here.
yeah,
right now.
we was on another.
Shout out to Off the Top Sports Radio, man. We were on their show last time. It was awesome.
Yep.
It's our first live in radio type of a broadcast. Those guys were great, phenomenal hosts. The show flowed. It was so organic. Topics were just flowing off the cuff left and right, man.
Yeah,
It
and
was
listen,
great. Those guys are awesome.
It's rapid fire, 2 hours, man. Like if you don't go in there with the proper bathroom situation, right, you might be in trouble.
That's very true. Live comments, too, on the screen that you get to react to, so that was great as well.
Yeah, we got some great ideas where we're definitely gonna, try to have some interactive moment with you guys, and so we there's a lot of fun stuff to come in the future.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. But listen, you already know what I'm going to say, so don't even think this wasn't coming. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We're looking for all those 5-star reviews on all our major platforms. Hey, and if you like us that much, click that little bell icon. You'll get a notification anytime one of our videos pops off, all right? So just get right on there. But please like, comment, and subscribe. We cannot ask you to do it enough, man. It's helped us grow tremendously, but we're continuing to grow. And with that, we get right into it. Before we go into the NBA playoffs, I'm hoping there's a way that we can get this thing edited on here, too, as I speak about it. Right
Oh,
now.
my God. So he thinks he's a
shout out.
baller, ladies and
So
gentlemen.
listen,
He thinks he's a
guys,
baller, ladies and gentlemen.
I just wanted to say, I prefaced this by saying my first love in sports was basketball. Okay. Well, obviously, I played football, I wrestled, and then I wrestled in college, too, as well. So basketball, the basketball career had to sit on the back burner. But I always still played for fun, played pickup. Well, fast forward to last week, we play Students First Faculty basketball game at my job, something we do every single year. Clock's winding down, man. 5 seconds. There's some errors with the scores. Apparently, we were down 1 point. The scoreboard read it wrong. But they give it to Mr. Mallory. He's getting hounded, double-teamed. You were. Yeah, just enough time. Hits it up off the backboard. Bang, game winner. These students flood the court. So I just want to let you guys know, you guys are in the presence of someone, a little basketball celebrity yourself. But I figured, what better way to get into this playoff discussion?
Celebrity, ladies and gentlemen, when you see this shot, is the ugliest shot you've ever seen in the world, okay? But it went in. It went in.
Shooter's touch, baby.
Shooter's touch. So shout out to the co-host. He did his thing. He schooled these youngins, right? Staff wins again.
It was fun.
much shout out to that,
Oh, man, it was a lot of fun. But listen, you know what's also been fun? Shout out to the New York sports teams, too, as well. Number one, I know we don't really talk a ton of hockey on the broadcast, but New York Rangers sweep through that first round. They advance. They're looking good. I don't want to jinx it because every time I say maybe this is finally the year they break through.
Listen, hey, one round at a time.
One round at a time.
They look good, look dominant, right? Playing hard, playing tough. So shout out to the Rangers.
The goalie's a stud, and they got a couple of young guys that are starting to come of age.
Igor's doing his thing.
Listen, New York sports, we've had it rough for a couple of years here, so it's nice.
Got a little momentum, like the show,
here.
right? Got a little momentum. Got to keep it going,
Yankees are doing really well. I think they have the first or second best record in the MLB still right now. And then, obviously, we are the New York Knicks.
New York
Knicks advance. They beat the Philadelphia 76ers. First of all, I don't know how many people are watching all the playoff series. I don't know which ones they're watching. Those games were awesome.
Everybody was watching the New York Philly situation.
Yeah,
it was literally. I think so far this playoffs has been one of the best playoffs in a very long time.
It's been awesome.
Yes, you could say I'm a little biased because I'm a Knicks fan.
Sure,
but think about it, right?
Games have been good.
They've been good, right? The difference between the Knicks and Philadelphia in those 6 games were 1 point.
I know.
1 point, right? So
much
phenomenal series. I ended up going to Game 5, right, thinking I was going to be there for a part of the closeout. When I tell you the energy was electric, it was
crazy.
Amazing. But then all of a sudden, right, Maxey drops over 40 on us, and we got to go back to Philly. But what I love,
Maxey went off all series. Man.
He really did. He really did. Listen, hey, give him that bag,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
he deserves
absolutely.
that $200+ million.
Maxey's a dog, man.
100%. Now, but Game 6 comes, right? And in game 5,
Another
the Knicks
great game.
made errors, right? There were coaching mistakes, right? That
Sure.
just didn't happen. The Knicks corrected all of that. The playoffs are about adjustments. You're not going to win them all. You're going to lose. But when you do lose, it's important to make adjustments so that you can close out the next time. And that's exactly what the Knicks did in game 6, right? You know, they didn't foul at the end of game 5, right? When the game got tight, they fouled. First of all, they came out early, went up something crazy like 20 to 4, 20 to 6 or something like that. They were really, you know, doing well, and they came out focused. But what I love, the entire team contributed, or at least the 7 guys that played, right? But OG came out looking for a shot, attacking the basket.
Sure.
Did you see that dunk? He dunked on Embiid.
I saw it.
Right?
Yeah.
Listen,
Embiid's going to be on a poster.
He's going to be on a poster.
He's going to be on a poster,
right?
for sure.
Yo, they've been, first of all, Dante DiVincenzo, right? Like in
Devo.
game 5, I expected him to show up, hit a couple threes. That would have been the difference in the game.
Yeah.
Tibbs haven't been playing him
bring
as
him back
much.
in too later in the game. I thought that was a little bit of an error on Tibbs in that game.
So showed up big time, dropped over 20 plus points in game 6. But my man Josh Hart, they was playing this brother like you can't shoot.
Listen, it's either the New York Wildcats or it's the Villanova Knicks. I mean, this is what this team
I'll
is
take
now,
it.
man.
I'll take it. But Josh Hart ended the game, right? They leave him wide open. They're doubling Brunson.
Josh Hart
right?
too. Like,
they
it's
don't
not
want
like he's the most confident shooter either.
Well,
too.
yeah, but listen,
he steps into it when you give him open shot.
100%. You gonna play me like that?
Yeah.
All right, game winner, game set, match blouses.
Well, you know what's funny is you could take the game winner, but if you just watch that series in general, you see how integral and crucial Josh Hart is to the Knicks, period. His crashing the boards, you know, getting after loose
17
balls.
rebounds one game.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's a guard, and he's grabbing boards like he's a big man. His defense, too. I mean, he was the one guy. They finally started putting him on Maxey and at least made Maxey have to work a little bit for his baskets, especially that game 6. Josh Hart was just so integral to the Knicks winning that series.
And listen, you know, I got a lot of respect for Philly, right? It's a place that I like. You know, Embiid's a really good player.
I like it. Stop with the cheap shots, Embiid, though.
And that's where I was going with this, man. Embiid, you had such a respect in the league for your game, your silliness, right? But, like, your antics were above and beyond. Now, I'm all about hard, you know, playoff basketball. So
clean fouls within the confines of the game.
Here's the thing. In game 4, right, Brunson came in the lane, and Embiid gave him a little shoulder. Hey, all good. You're in the lane. That's big boy territory.
Sure.
Get ready for big boy blows.
Yeah.
Right? But, you know, stepping on players, twisting ankles, you know, those types of cheap shots.
The Mitchell
right?
Robinson play was completely uncalled for.
Right? So that's where Embiid, I feel like, harmed his reputation. Where
it looks worse too when you're a giant doing things like these to other players. It looks bad. It's
exactly.
a bad look.
Now, here's the thing. You're doing that, and you're the one with the bad knee. If the Knicks came out and accidentally bumped into that knee, right, then, you know, that would have been foul. That would have been brutal, right? Knicks are playing dirty and lowballing, right? Now, like, that's what they would have said about us. But we didn't do that, right? And at the end of the day, the outcome was ours. But Embiid, you hurt yourself that way, where Tyrese Maxey rose and said, you know what? I'm going to do the damn thing. I'm going to drop these 40 points. I'm going to hit this game winner. You ain't going to double me?
Yep.
Right? And so he took that as a personal challenge.
He looked tired, though, too. Maxey looked tired from the Game 5 effort. He looked a little tired to start Game 6.
So what I loved about Game 6 now, the Knicks started to catch him early, double, say, listen, you ain't going to beat us. And then you ain't going to come in this lane. Right? So the Knicks did everything they could to say, Embiid beat us. Right? Now, Embiid, he dropped, you know, 20, 30 points or whatever the case is, right? But he fouled out. Like, he really looked tired, and he shrinks in the biggest closeout games, right? And so
he struggled defensively the whole series.
Struggled defensively, and I give him that because he's hurt. But where the inconsistency was, he didn't show up in the fourth quarter, right? Now I get it. You're playing most of the game, right? And you're tired and everything like that. But at the end of the day, like, you got to get that blow from your coach and say, hey, I need these 5 minutes so I could come back in the fourth, right, and finish this game. If you look at it, Tibbs took out Brunson for 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. I think it was between the 9-minute mark and the 7-minute mark.
Okay.
Right? The Knicks held their own, but he got that quick rest.
Sure.
Right? That quick opportunity to recover because he knew he had to finish the game. Right? And he didn't want to die out. Embiid, the coaching staff, should have done that for them. And first of all, Philly, Nick Nurse, where was Buddy Hield the entire series? That move in terms of not playing him earlier was the difference in the game because he could shoot.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. And it was another guy that the Knicks were having a hard enough time trying to contain Embiid and Maxey most of the series. Then all of a sudden you add in a guy like a Buddy Hield. It was really, I got scared when all of a sudden Buddy Hield started coming out shooting threes. I'm like, I just don't know between just the injuries and how the Knicks are already being forced to play Philly. I don't know if they're going to be able to handle this extra addition of Hield. But the Knicks have just answered the bell all year. I mean, they've gone through the injuries. A lot of people, too, I don't think realize the level of depth that this team truly has. I mean, losing Randall through the year as well, losing OG for multiple months, too, as well. Like, having to work and get all these guys back into as well. Randall's obviously not back. They just lost Bogey now, too, in this playoff series. And all they do is keep finding a way to just win games in advance. Next man up mentality. I think that's what I love most about this team. Because I think if you just go compare the two teams on paper, talent for talent. I think Philly had more talent overall in their roster than the Knicks. But the Knicks are tough. They battle. And let me tell you something. Any team who's going to play the Knicks in a playoff series, when that shot goes up and you're on defense, you better get a body on somebody because all 5 New York Knicks are going to go and crash that offensive glass. And that's so crucial this time of year in the playoffs, to extending games.
It's not about the talent. It's not about the, physical stature of the dog, right? It's about the heart of the dog. And 100%. At the end of the day, the Knicks showed 100%
Size the fight in the dog, not the dog in the fight.
There you go, right? Yep. And so all of a sudden now the Knicks are like, you know what? If you beat us, right, you're not going to beat us based on effort. You're not going to beat us based on defense. You're not going to beat us based on, second chance points. Remember, I said there was a 1-point differential, right, in the entire series, right? The amount of second chance opportunities that the Knicks got when it came to offensive rebounds was the difference in the series, 100%. Right? And so at the end of the day,
allow them to compete in future series as
offensive rebounds is 100% effort, right? That's boxing out, right?
It's how you close out a defensive possession. You box your man out, you grab the defensive board, it's our ball now. That's how you close it out. And if you're not going to do that against the Knicks, you're going to be playing a long series because they are going to do that. They are going to crash.
Listen, and like I said, with the Rangers, we're going to take it one series at a time. The Knicks, we're going to take it one game at a time.
Sure.
But, oh, boy, I'm telling you, right? Don't let us make that Eastern Conference Finals, right? Because at that point, we got nothing to lose.
I know.
And hypothetically, if it's Boston, they would have all the pressure in the world. Which is probably going to be. And here's the thing. We just took care of Philly, New York. Right? Now we got Philly, Indiana. There's a lot of history there, Reggie.
Yeah. New York, Indiana.
New York, Indiana. There's a lot of history there.
Old
Philly
school
stuck on the mind, right? There's a lot of history there, Reggie. So all of a sudden, if we take them down, and now we got Boston.
Sure.
We got Boston in the conference finals, right? Like it's setting up, right? Where we got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
All the pressure's on the Celtics. Don't let us steal a game one. Yeah. Right? Like look at the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Nuggets.
I know, man.
Right? And Edwards just stole game one from the Nuggets on the road.
You sure you want to just stay too with that? I mean, we'll talk about them, but you sure you want to just stay with that Vince Carter comparison?
So listen. All right, so okay.
I'm seeing more than Vince Carter right now.
Let me say this. I again, my comp on Ant Edwards is a more athletic Vince Carter. However,
I'm seeing a psycho out there.
However,
I'm seeing a murderer.
I see
as off the top sports. So
I see a ultra street ball competitor, right? Game. So Ant Edwards is a fan of Kevin Durant.
Oh yeah, it's his favorite player.
It's his favorite player, right? Oh, we in the playoffs?
Yeah, trash talking up and down. No. Games.
I'm gonna guard you. Right? And you're going to guard me.
Sure.
And I'm going to drop these 45 points. Right? Like that right there is straight competitiveness, is the ilk, right, of an assassin. And that is where MJ and Edwards, I see the comparison.
Oh, yeah, man.
Right? He's developed that little step back jump shot, that mid-range shot.
Sure.
And so I can see it because, again, MJ had that athleticism. He was flying in the air, right?
And he didn't care who he was going against. Most people look at the Nuggets and Jokic like, that's the best player in the NBA. There's like this whole, he respects him, but he fears no one. The better you are, the harder he's going at you in a game.
And so that, and again, so I see the maturity, right? I see that, like that competitiveness, right? Like, because, right, when you're playing street ball, right, at the end of the day, like, if somebody scores on you, you got to score on them, right? It's just like, oh, and you're going to talk some trash right now? Okay, great. It becomes a little one-on-one thing.
Sure.
And then, right, we talked about the size of the heart when it comes to the Knicks, right? Sometimes it's about a man's will. And I see Ant Edwards willing, right, the Minnesota Timberwolves to each victory. Yo, Karl Anthony Towns, play some defense. We need you. Score the ball. Hey, stop those dumb fouls because we need you in that fourth quarter.
Sure.
Hey, Rudy Gobert, hold it down. Step out on your man. We got your back, right? Like, bench players, like, hey, hit those rebounds, and when you got that open three, do what you're supposed to do.
Sure.
Right? I see his imprint to say, I will us. It is a team game.
Yeah.
But in basketball is the one sport that a good enough player can will a team through a series.
Sure.
And they're good enough that he can will them to the finals.
Well, so I'll tell you what I see with that team after watching the game last night. And for the record, obviously we didn't get predictions in for this series before because things were still figuring it out. And then obviously some of the various series, like this series just started last night. But when I watched that game and I analyzed the series, I'll go on the record saying in my basketball chat, I said Denver in 6. After watching the game last night, I got extremely worried about my pick. First of all, I'll already sit there and tell you, if Denver's winning this series, I think it's probably going to be in 7 games. This is not me trying to overreact to one game. It's one game. But the fact that you had a young, still kind of somewhat unproven team and commodity when it comes to the playoff situations, going up against the NBA champion, they jump out to that early lead in the game yesterday. Denver walks them down. They bring it back. They're up 4 at halftime. Okay. What I always notice, though, is it's the third quarter. That's when Denver gets you. They kind of make their difference. That's where they got LA. And it just seemed like no matter what Denver did, Minnesota always had an answer. And there's another big thing matchup-wise that's playing into account here. They have not 1, not 2, but they have 3 large dudes that, for 1, can go and guard Jokic, but 2, Jokic now has to go and guard on the other side. They've got, look, Gobert is not like a scoring threat, but it's still a big guy that has to be accounted for. Karl Anthony Towns.
Got to step out. He can shoot.
Accounted for, and you can step out. And apparently, Nas Reed can step out and shoot too.
He can shoot. No.
Threes left and right last night.
He's that corner shooter, right?
He was
sometimes
great.
deep from the elbow.
They have the roster construction to match up with Denver. So it's real. It's going to be really tough for Denver.
Yes, right. So,
and they're not afraid of him.
So in this, I would have been 50-50, right? Because you got to give the respect to the Nuggets. But what 100%. I saw, right, Minnesota do to the Phoenix Suns,
Jokic
Kevin
was
Durant
tired last night.
So you're going where I'm going.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Timberwolves are healthier and they're younger.
And they're bigger.
Right? And technically they
when
are
you go
bigger.
Spot for spot, lineup for lineup.
Yes, technically
that's usually
they're
an
bigger.
advantage that Denver has.
Yes. So now here's the thing. The healthier team, the younger team, right? Because remember,
the more hungry team.
Listen, so you go where I was going, right? I talk about this in the football season. Sometimes, right? Like how hungry when your belly is
the
full.
Hunter versus the hunted.
Right. When your belly is full, like you're a little satisfied.
Sure.
How hungry are you when your belly's full? You're not. Right? In Denver, they'll eat some more, but their belly is full. Now the Minnesota Timberwolves, all right, let me say this. Ant Edwards, that dude is hungry.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's listening. He knows who they're comparing him.
He's our guy.
He knows
this
that
is the next American-born star. We're watching
and
him
he
right
knows
now.
that. Wait. Face of the league. Wait, Jason Tatum don't want it, right? You know,
we're waiting for an American.
Like John Morant can't get his act together. So wait, all right, nobody want it. I'm gonna take it. And if I take it, I'm not giving it back.
Sure.
That's Ant Edwards.
Yeah.
So because of that, I'm going to say the Timberwolves in 6, and I'll say this now so that I say it early. If the Timberwolves win this series, they're going to the NBA Finals.
That's
right?
interesting.
They're going to the NBA Finals because here was my thought process. My thought process was whoever won between the Lakers and the Nuggets were going to go far. Now that I've seen both of those series.
Yeah, you saw 2 first-round series.
And Murray is not 100%, and Jokic will be tired in this series. Yeah. I see the changing of the guard.
McDaniels really frustrating Jamal Murray.
So
put some respect on McDaniel's name.
Bigger body coming after him. So, Michael Porter, there's more pressure on him. Can he show up? Sure. He's got some family issues going on with his
Gordon
brothers.
Played great last night, but even him, it's just, you could see.
And
they're going to have to play defense in this series.
And here's the problem. The Denver Nuggets plays extremely well at home.
I know.
On the road,
it's such an advantage too.
Yep.
That altitude.
Yep. On the road, their role players don't show up as well.
Sure.
So now you've given Minnesota the home court advantage. Minnesota's gonna be rocking.
I know.
Rocking.
And they got a big problem matchup wise with Anthony Edwards because as much as I love Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he can't guard Edwards.
No.
Edwards is too big. He's too physical. They had somebody like a Bruce Brown last year who I think would have. Do I think he's shutting down Edwards? No, but I think that he's physically strong enough to hold up and be a little bit of a better. They've got a problem right now in terms of guarding him. What do you want to do? Send Gordon out, one of your best defenders?
But here's the thing.
But it opens you up on the back end of things.
And Gordon is not going to give you that production again in this series. Right? In my belief. Right? He might give you maybe 75% of that production, but he just had the game of his career. Yeah. And so that's not going to happen
He's also
again.
a jack of all trades. He does a little bit of everything, Aaron Gordon.
Well, listen, they got him for LeBron. There's no LeBron in this series, and he can't. Anthony Edwards is just too fast.
Yeah.
Right? So they're going to have some serious
The one
problems.
time they put him on a couple times, and then Edwards would just hit shots too, like step backs and hitting shots over him. So Denver, listen, I'm going to still take Denver. I'm going to take Denver in 7, but I think that is going to be a long physical series, but you're going Minnesota in 6. Yeah. I try not to overreact to one game. That's my big thing.
Listen, and again, I wasn't overreacting. I'm like, slow down on the MJ comparisons. Now, you got me on the boat. I'm on the Anthony Edwards boat now, right? Like I see the baby Jordan. The baby Jordan.
He's a stud.
Hey, you said baby Jordan. I'm not jumping off that boat.
Yeah.
I'm on it. I'm on it all the way now.
Now,
get me a jersey.
Who you got today, though, because we still have one first-round series closing out.
Cavs are going to finish it out.
Cavs
are going to finish it out. Listen, Donovan Mitchell dropped 50 points in Game 6.
Boston.
Right, winner gets Boston. And here's the thing. Same thing. The Cavs role players play extremely well at home. They'll show up. The Orlando Magic, they can't hit threes. They can't. If they had one shoot, if they had a Buddy Hield, if they had a Klay Thompson, right, they'd be an entirely different team. This series would be over, and I'd be going with Orlando. Game 7, ton of pressure. Home team, it wins, 65, 70% of the time. I'm going with the Cleveland Cavs. What about you?
I'm going to take the Cavs, too, as well. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Orlando, when you get to a Game 7, it's crazy. Anything really can happen. Any team can win. But based on this series, it's just hard for me to go against the home team always winning. I think the Cavs have just a little bit more experience. They almost took that Game 6. I like the Cavs in this game. Although I will say right now, I think the Magic would actually give the Boston a physically tougher matchup in a series. I wouldn't be shocked if Boston ended up sweeping Cleveland, if not beating them in 5 games. I just don't think Cleveland has the physicality to go with them.
Gentlemen.
I think Orlando has a little bit more.
Yeah, man. In the next segment, we got to talk a little bit about the Bucks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if we talk with the rest of the series, talk a little bit about the teams that got eliminated too as well. But the other series, so I would take Boston over Cleveland or Orlando, and I would say 5-6 games max if they played Orlando. New York versus Indiana. Big series.
Yeah, big series. Let's kick that off in segment 2.
We'll kick that off in segment 2. But guys, listen, that is all the time we have for segment number 1. Don't go anywhere, though. We'll be right back to Run It Back on segment number 2. What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Maury, joined once again by my co-host, Ricky DaCosta, and this is segment number 2, of Run It Back, our final segment for this week. All right, we're going to touch on a couple more of the playoff series, some of the eliminated teams, and then go rapid fire around the NFL for our little draft notes, all right? But quickly, I said Boston over Cleveland or Orlando, and I'll say 6 max if it's Orlando. I'll say 5 if it's Cleveland. You agree?
5 doesn't matter who it is.
5 either way. All right. So Knicks versus Indy. I mean, obviously we both are picking the Knicks, I would assume. How many games you got? I'm going to tell you right now, I'll go 6. I think that this is going to be a little bit of back and forth series early, but I do think the Knicks' physicality, toughness, and ability to attack the glass is ultimately going to be the difference in this series.
I think Knicks in 5.
Knicks in 5.
I think Knicks in 5, right?
Music to my ears.
Here's the thing, right? You know, Indiana's young, right? Granted, they got Pascal Siakam, right? And he's got a little bit of experience. And that's exactly. So I think the Knicks are going to shut that down. Yeah. And if they're not hitting their threes, they're going to get lost. And if everyone's not really involved, you know, then it's gonna be, you know, their rhythm isn't gonna be there, right? And if they have, remember, the Knicks have home court advantage. If they go down 0-2 quickly, right, you know, I don't see them coming back and having the same fight that you know, the Philadelphia 76ers had. Sure. So I think Knicks in 5, gentleman sweep. And I don't think the effort, the heart, the rebounds they're gonna have. Now we will miss Bogdanović.
Yeah, no,
right?
that's a big loss.
Because he's definitely good for that, loss. You know, 10, maybe
spreads
18 points, spreads the floor. Yeah. But I think the Knicks' effort defense will them through this, and I don't think Indiana is ready for it.
We also got the Pascal Siakam stalker, the secret weapon, Precious Achiuwa. They were teammates over in Toronto, so he knows him well. Expect Precious to get a lot more minutes this series, especially with how Indy plays. Yeah. All right, so we're both on the Knicks. And then the last series was an intriguing series. The Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks obviously eliminated the LA Clippers. I called that one too. I said 6 games. Now they go up against OKC, who obviously had a very good first-round series. They swept the Pelicans. Who do you like here?
Listen, I said, right, the Oklahoma Thunder were not contenders, right?
We're already getting hit on a couple of compliments on that.
Right. Hey, listen, I said it, right? You guys made it past the first round. You didn't have to play LeBron, right? God bless. It ends right here, okay? It ends right here. Dallas, better team, more experienced, and I don't
think they're going to be able to guard Luka.
They won't be able to guard Luka. Listen, I'm going to give them some respect, and I'm going to say Dallas in 6 because Dallas is good to be absent for a game or two, to not necessarily show up.
Sure.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it's Dallas in 5, but I'm going to give them Dallas in 6. And the Thunder will grow from this.
Sure.
Right? They need one more stud. And I think they'll be ready if they added a Paul George.
They just need to get bigger, in my opinion.
They do need some size at the power forward position. You know, it's interesting. P.J. Washington that ended up with Dallas would have been a perfect fit for them to give him that offensive and defensive production.
Yep.
So I think they need to go find their P.J. Washington that could give them those, 17 to 20 points a game.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think Lou Dort is going to be very busy this series. I think Lou Dort's going to be on Luka as often as they can. But I mean, again, Luka they screen constantly. He's constantly matchup heading and setting things up. And again, you have Kyrie on the other end too as well, who was huge, especially in that closeout game.
I think he's been reborn. I really think he's been reborn. I don't know.
I was a guy who was critical on Kyrie a couple of years ago with just some of his antics and like what he was pulling in Brooklyn. I think he's matured somewhat as a player.
I think it comes down. It's gonna sound crazy. I think it's the stardom, right? When he was with LeBron, it was like so big. He was so young, and he wanted it to be his team,
sure,
right? Didn't fit in Boston, so I won't really crucify him for Boston. But Brooklyn, him as a leader, like that's not him, right?
Brooklyn was bad,
as well as he's at home, New York City, too many, influences. Now all of a sudden, right? It's Luka's team. You're in Dallas, new market, right? You just got paid.
Pretty simple. We just want you to be a guy that can go and get us a bucket when Luka can't. And
he's been
Kyrie
doing that.
Can do that.
And he's turned up his defensive intensity. So I think him and Jason Kidd are vibing, and Jason Kidd is able to connect with him well enough to be able to get the best out of him.
Good shout out on the Jason Kidd, too. He's done a good job coaching the team. Yeah. I like Dallas in 6. I'm going to try to give Oklahoma City the benefit of the doubt and say at least make it a competitive series. But I wouldn't
be surprised, though. And again, I'll say this, fans. If the Oklahoma City Thunder, go ahead, come for me.
If you're coming to the Western Conference Finals, we can't say anything at that point.
Exactly.
They're obviously for real.
But
and it's not even that we don't think they're good. We just didn't think they were a title contender.
Exactly. You beat up a injured Pelicans team, right? If you're the real deal, you'll handle business here with Dallas and go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah. If not, then
I also think that series is a lot different if Zion is healthy. Like I think it's a very different series.
Hey, you said it, not me.
Hats off to them. They got through. They played who was in front of them. They beat them up. Good job, man. You advanced to the next round. Now, before we get into the NFL, talk a little bit about some of these eliminated teams and kind of their next step. If you were looking at Milwaukee as an example, right, or maybe the first team, what do you think the Bucks kind of have to do to right the ship in some way?
They need depth. They need 3-and-D players, right? Is the first and foremost, right?
I think they need one good defensive wing, whether that be like Barry.
I think they need to move Milton. Right.
Okay.
And I think not Milton, Middleton.
Oh,
right?
Middleton,
right?
I wanted them to move him last year.
Yeah. So like, ultimately, he's been hurt, a bunch of times, right? Getting older. He's still a good enough 3-point shooter that you can get some value for him.
Sure.
But you need to get younger. What I've noticed about this NBA throughout is that if you don't have the young guys mixed in, and primarily at the 3-and-D in the point guard position,
role players,
right?
You're
in trouble, right? Because like a lot of teams can use a Josh Hart, right?
100%.
You think about how
Josh Hart can be valuable to any team.
Think about how different the Bucks would be. Think about how different the Suns would be, right? With that type of player.
Yeah.
Hell, the Nuggets need that right now to contain them. So, I think that's the theme throughout most of the teams. But the Bucks need to get younger, more athletic, and more depth.
I agree. I totally agree. Giannis and Dame also, it's just, this is the first, they got to figure it out. And here's my thing. Giannis is walking, in my opinion, he's walking somewhat of a dangerous path. Giannis used to be kind of the guy that, team lovable, and the franchise and lovable. And now all of a sudden you get multiple, one coach leaves before the season. You get another coach fired. It's reported that you weren't even listening to him in huddles and whatnot. You guys were 34-13 too when that happens. The stuff with his brother too, I know rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Like, I'm not getting a shoe deal unless my brother. It's like, yo, man, like, chill. It's like you were kind of supposed to be the guy that was the antithesis or away from all that stuff of managing. And now you're kind of turning into that same thing. The other reason I bring that up is it's on the basketball court too. I've said this since the beginning of the season and since they got Dame. For that team to reach its full potential, the offense need to run and go through Dame. Dame needs to have the ball in his hands the majority of the time. Giannis needs to learn how to work off ball. He's a phenomenal defensive player, and if he could just embrace working off ball, I mean, he's going to score 20, 30 points just by accident picking and rolling off of Dame's action.
Yeah.
Get a little bit younger, you'll be fine on the defensive side. They got to figure it out coaching-wise too as well. Like, is Doc going to be the guy that can get this team over the hump if you bring in the prerequisite pieces? But I agree with your overall assessment. They need to get younger. They need to get more athletic, especially on defense.
Absolutely.
Here's a more interesting one. The Clippers. Like, what are you doing right now if you're the Clippers? Paul George now is up for, he's in free agent, okay? They re-upped Kawhi, who once again got hurt in the playoffs. What do you do if you're this team right now? Like, how do you approach
now there's two aspects to it. There's the team.
James Harden, I think, is up for a deal too.
Yep. There's two aspects to it. There's the team and there's the players, right?
Sure.
If I am the players, I don't want to be there, right? If I'm Paul George, right, I don't want to be there, right?
Except he's from LA. That's the hard part.
But at the end of the day, right, like, I want to maximize my game. Hoopers want to hoop, right? Like, and at the end of the day, yes, they also want to compete, but like, but you want to score, right? Like, James Harden is sacrificing his game to fit into the team, and Kawhi Leonard is the one that got paid, right? Like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right now, I get it. James Harden is questionable when it comes to pressure situations. Him and Embiid are questionable when it comes to closeout games in the playoffs and that type of thing. But for the most part, he's been there. He's been a model citizen. Now, granted, he's being a model citizen because he wants to get the bag.
Yeah.
Right. So that's interesting. But if I'm Paul George, I don't want to be there. There's so many other better places to be. You can go to Golden State. You can go to the Knicks. You can go to Oklahoma City Thunder.
Sure.
Right? There are so you can go to Philadelphia. There are so many teams and better places that you could be that will
funny,
give
that's
you
the rumor about Durant too. Philly's mentioned with Durant too as well.
Well,
possible landing. So
so they look. Philly's gonna go, big player hunting, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think Philly would want him. I don't know if he would want Philly, but we'll see about that. But yeah, now if I'm the team, you have to re-sign him. You're going into a new arena, right? And you want to have star power. But if you're trying to win,
that's your best player if Kawhi's going to be hurt too.
Yes,
my opinion.
But if you want a championship, like I've been saying, the theme is you got to get younger and more athletic, right? And so Paul George still has it now. Harden has been a good player, but I think they need a true point guard so that they could dominate the ball, set up plays for Paul George, so that he can sort of swing into, instead of that, dominant two-way player, into more of a, scorer, 3-point shooter, right? But he can, give you 35 if you really need it, but he can't give it to you every night.
Yeah. Personally, if I was the Clippers, I would have blown it up, because this is just all this team has shown since you put it together is it cannot be 100% healthy when it matters the most. I wouldn't have extended Kawhi. I get Kawhi as a stud. He is a stud. But here's the problem. Best ability is availability. If this guy is going to continuously get hurt in the playoffs, how many times do you need to see it before you're just like, I can't sink long-term. I can't sink a long-term investment. I get it. They got to sell tickets and keep the fans excited too. I thought it was a mistake doing that with Kawhi in the first place.
Let alone doing it during the middle of the season.
Yeah, I thought it was a mistake. I mean, I thought all the data was pretty clear. But again, I'm not a GM. I'm not an owner of the LA Clippers. So how about the Lakers?
Ooh, so for Lakers, they need a point guard. 100% need a point guard.
Yep.
And listen, Trae Young, splashy, but
point
he's
guard
more
or
of a
some
scorer.
type of a defensive player, like a wing.
Again, if I'm Paul George, right, I think he could fit in well there. Now, again, to me, go young point guard and a Paul George.
Well, D'Lo, I think,
can
is
make a
gone.
run.
Yeah,
and hopefully in a sign and trade situation, they could set that up. But I think Paul George on a wing standpoint, older player, you can make a run with him. But they also need I'll say scoring depth, right? Rui, like at the end of the day, like he's gonna give you 20 good games for the year, right? That's not what you need, right? Austin Reeves, he's gonna play well at home, but he's a defensive liability,
not the greatest
right?
defender.
And so
he tries, but
right. And then honestly, the next thing I think you need a true center. I think they need a true Mitchell Robinson, move AD to the 4, right? So it's interesting.
Look at when they won. AD was playing off the center spot. He was playing at the 4. You had another big to go and match up with the bigger guys.
Dwight Howard.
And AD just ate on defense.
Exactly. So,
absolutely ate up.
It's interesting, right? They need a Rudy Gobert, right? That, and again, it could even be a Naz Reid, right? Just so that, like,
never understood why that Laker team just broke everything up after winning a title.
So that's
it didn't make sense.
Yeah,
to me.
that's the crime of this guy, the GM, right? He should have
Rob Pelinka.
Rob Pelinka should have kept everyone together, and if you
at least run it back one more year.
Yes.
Make a couple of minor adjustments around the edges. You couldn't re-sign Rondo for a year.
Rondo,
you couldn't re-sign
Caldwell
Dwight Howard.
Pope, right?
Dwight Howard's playing in like another country right now. You're telling me Dwight Howard can't give you 15 minutes a night still?
Yeah.
Just go and guard Jokic. That's all we need you to do. It never made sense to me with that team, but I agree with you. Get younger, especially on the perimeter. They got to fix the guard spots, even from just a defensive standpoint. One way or another, they have to get some other type of a scoring piece that can just take some of the load and pressure off of LeBron and AD.
Now, I will say this, right? I wouldn't go get Trae Young, but if you got Donovan Mitchell, that could be enough, right? He's not the true point guard, but he can give you 50.
He can score.
Right? And so he
might be
dominant.
too expensive. That's the problem.
Maybe, but he's so dominant on an offensive end. He is younger, so he could be a long-term solution.
Sure.
And then you fill in some younger, taller pieces. That might be the difference.
The other team that's kind of stuck right now is Phoenix. They sunk a lot of money into these 3 major pieces, and now it's already being talked about. Which one of those 3 pieces are they going to try to move?
You're not going to
trade
trade
is the name that's going to be,
because you cannot trade Devin Booker. He's the
a guy.
youngest. He's the face of the team.
Yeah. But you probably get the most for Booker.
Yeah, but you can't, right? Because then you're
really
really blowing it up.
I'm with you.
Beal, you can't trade because he has a no trades clause. So the only one you can trade.
Who's going to trade for Beal?
Exactly. And Durant only has about 1 or maybe 2 years left on his deal. So, like, if you are going to get something for him before he walks, this is the time.
Yeah, I would say shop Durant around and see whatever it is you can get, because Phoenix is currently constructed right now, cannot win an NBA title. They are physically not strong enough, they are not big enough, and they are just not tough enough. You have to be tough.
And then separately, financially, you need depth, right? That $50 million you're paying, that $50 million you're paying Durant, all of a sudden you spread that out over three strong role pieces, right? Imagine,
and that's the model we're seeing right now too. You get like 2 guys that are kind of somewhat your scorers / stars of your team, build out the rest of the roster in terms of the other things you need around those guys.
Yes. But you need scoring, and you need
100%.
young legs.
Yeah.
You need young legs, 100%.
But again, look at the Nuggets, Jokic and Murray. Look at the Mavs, Luka and Kyrie. And it's just then you fit the other pieces around those guys. But those are your studs. Okay. That wraps up basketball. Going rapid fire. The NFL draft, my man. It has been too long. All right, so I'm just going to kind of throw a team at you. I have the draft thing up right here, so I'm going to go by the teams. But let's start off. Chicago Bears. Tell me what you thought about their draft.
I love the draft. Obviously, we all knew they were going to take Caleb Williams. The fact that they doubled down and took another wide receiver with Rome Odunze, I think that's a 100% home run. You match him up on the same cycle in terms of pay.
Yep.
He'll be able to learn from a Keenan Allen and a DJ Moore, which is already a young, strong piece that you're going to have to pay some more money. So the long-term answers are DJ Moore and Rome Odunze with Kmet at tight end. You got Swift in the back for the first couple of years, and you got a ton of depth, right? So love how they've built out that team, and I think they're going to make a strong push for the playoffs.
So first of all, I'm just going to say, with all the moves that Chicago made, I think the NFC North could very quickly turn into the best conference in the NFC.
Division, yeah.
I agree with everything you just said about Chicago. Let's go a step further. First of all, they never had a 4,000-yard pass rusher. Last year, they had one of the worst pass offenses in the league.
Mm-hmm.
You double down on it. You not only go and get your quarterback that you think is going to be your guy for the future, you brought in a whole new offensive scheme geniuses. You brought in Keenan Allen. You brought in Rome Odunze. I absolutely love what this team did on the draft.
And now, last year, they did fix some of the offensive line, right? So they have a stronger offensive line.
And they got better on defense, too. Now, if you look at the numbers, they finished as one of the worst defensive teams. However, when they brought in Sweat last year, the defense took a significant step in the right direction. They got much better against the run, too, as well. They got to clean up a couple things in their secondary, but right now you can't fix it all in one draft.
Yes.
They took a huge step towards building this team back up for the future. Washington Commanders. Give me your thoughts on the draft.
Yeah, listen, love the pick, Jaden Daniels. Obviously, I think that was the right pick, with a coach like Cliff Kingsbury, right?
Yep.
Like great offensive coach.
Is he the head coach of the OC?
OC.
He's the OC,
right?
I'm drawing a blank on who the head coach is.
What's it called? Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is the head coach, right? So, he's going to have a fast defense, right? And so, listen, I think they did what they were supposed to do. And then if I'm not mistaken, their, second and third round picks were defensive players, right? They already have a lot of good offensive talent, right, at the wide receiver position. They picked up Austin Eckler.
Yep.
They picked up Bobby Wagner.
Good for a young quarterback, have a reliable running back.
I don't really think they have a strong tight end, but I think overall they have enough to be dangerous.
So they let Logan Thomas go, but they drafted this kid from Kansas State, Ben Sinnott. So addressing a need too as well.
Yeah.
I look at them overall as I look at these teams more as maybe we'll get a little bit more in depth as we have more time to go into each of these, but it's more just like, do you like the draft? Did you not like the draft? I like their draft because they're rebuilding. So, it was just a mass accumulation of talent and trying to, again, set your young quarterback up for success in this brand new situation. So put as many foundational pieces around him as you can. Reliable running back, you go and get you obviously get the new OC who knows how to work with them. They bring in a new tight end, which is obviously a need. They brought in another receiver. They have some talent already on that team. They have some young receivers. So now it's just about I think a coaching staff somewhat kind of bringing this together and making it all work around this new young quarterback. Gotcha. But I like their draft. I did like it.
Yeah, and listen, to bounce around a little bit, what do you think about the Atlanta Falcons, right? That was the most controversial situation in the draft. What are your thoughts?
Man, it almost struck me as a team that didn't even know who they were drafting until they came into the draft room.
Mm-hmm.
I love Michael Penix. I love Michael Penix. I've been high on him since the beginning of the college football season. I don't care that you drafted Michael Penix. That's great. But why would you sign Kirk Cousins then in the first place to $180 million guaranteed? Now, maybe a part of it is this whole idea that they just don't want to be irrelevant at the quarterback position.
There you
ever
go.
Again,
there you
right?
go. So they had
they did what they had to.
So they
with Desmond
overpaid
Ridder,
with Cousins.
Sure.
Right. The reason why all of this was so hush-hush, right? People might not realize this, but the Atlanta Falcons is under investigation for tampering because they talked to Kirk Cousins too early, right? Either the owner or someone in the executive staff happened to be in the same location where Kirk Cousins was on vacation, right? And was able to have a conversation before free agency, right? So I think management loved Michael Penix, was considering taking him. However, didn't make that decision known, not even to the owner, until it was game time. All right. So I think that's what happened and ultimately led to all of that.
Yeah, I mean, again, listen, I'm just sitting here looking at it like if they had made that pick and not brought in Cousins to begin with, it would have just made more sense to me. Everything you just said, though, tells me an organization where a lot of people are just not on the same page right now.
So a lot to talk about in the next episode, my brother.
Yeah, but listen, that is all the time we have for this week's episode of Run It Back. All right, guys. Well, we'll give you a lot more in-depth draft coverage next week. But I am Shane Maurer with my co-host,
Ricky DeCosta.
And we'll see you next week when we
Run it back.